Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thank you very much for joining me as I explore the amazing, incredible, fabulous wide world of pens. And you see one rotating in front of you, a good looking pen, being held up by one of my new pen holders, the squid. I think the interesting nuances of that squid really complement this Nahvalur Voyage, Hawaii. Yes, one of my acquisitions from the Empire State Pen Show I went to. And I like this pen. I enjoy it. The resin's amazing. It writes well, piston fill, decent amount of ink. A lot of good things to like. But I can watch this pen rotate all day, and my pen friends agree. This is a great looking pen to watch. They all want to hold it, but right now, that's the squid's responsibility. So as it rotates around, we'll let Mr. Squid, or Miss Squid, don't really know how to tell, give you a little winky wink, and we're going to dive in and look at the details of this pen. Ooh, can't wait. For those of you that had not had the pleasure of getting a Nahvalur pen, it comes in this really nicely decorated box, very giftable. The sleeve slides off, and you see the logo, very nicely done. And this is magnetic, so that pops up. You open it up, you get a nice warranty card, and you see the pen nicely positioned, little elastic band. I think this is great packaging. And of course, it's identified again. So when I first picked up this pen, it just feels good in my hand. The weight's good, the balance is good. Just a joy to look at, which is what we would like all our nib holders to be. At least I would. The cap comes off in about 1.5 turns. We'll see a Nahvalur nib. Yes, it's marked there, F for fine, and it is a fine nib. Nice engraving, unique. It's easy to tell that this is a Nahvalur nib. And the pen fits nice, feels good in the hand. That grip and that section is just about perfect for me. I like the little flare out at the end. You can put your fingers anywhere. There's nothing to stop you. Those threads are smooth. That step up is rounded. And from the design, you can probably tell it's not a pen that posts, but not all pens need to post. And I certainly don't post my pens. So we're going to look at it in more details. Stay tuned. So when Narwhal first came out with this Nautilus with those great porthole windows in it, ebonite, dark trim, really nice pen, really enjoy it. So you can see why the Voyage Hawaii really captured my attention. The shape, size, and everything else is pretty much the same between these two pens, but I'm impressed that this pen has Narwhal on the cap band and this one has Nahvalur on the cap band. So they did change that, and the engraving is pretty similar, except the name, which is hidden into that pattern. Really well done. Really like it. You know, solid pens, good weight, feel great in the hand. What more could you ask for? So one thing about piston fillers like this is they're fairly consistent design. And you have your cap. Yes, I will always admire that resin. Love the cap band at the bottom there. Then you have your barrel, your ink window. and they kind of matched up a little bit, the section design with the barrel design. Not exactly, but close enough. As we turn the cap at the end of the barrel, that moves the piston down, and we'll bring in our LED in a little bit to show you that. But the piston stops before the ink window. So when you do your first draw, you're going to be drawing up a lot of air. So this one we definitely would do at least 2 draws. Thankfully, the Asvine wrench fits in those 2 flat slots there, so it can be easily used to remove the piston if that's necessary, but I don't expect to do that. This will probably have a long life, and since I have so many pens, this is not going to be my only pen, so it probably won't be refilled that often. And of course, we have the nib assembly, the narwhal nib. It's your standard injection molded plastic feed, and that certainly looks like a fine tipping on that nib. I could look through all my nib assemblies to see if this matches up with any of them, but I'm not going to do that. Well, I know I said I wasn't going to investigate the nib assemblies and what they look like, but I couldn't help myself. So I have a number of Moonman spare nibs, and as we can see, they're the same. So the nib assembly used by Moonman is the same as the nib assembly made by Nahvalur. I think that's good consolidation. One manufacturer that really good at making nib collars and assemblies and maybe feeds, and somebody putting their nibs in there. And yes, you can screw the nib assembly from the Moonman into the Nahvalur pens, at least this number 6 size nib. I will put silicone grease on these threads in this O-ring and silicone grease on the ink O-ring down at the bottom. And as I've said many times, when you screw the nib assembly in, this O-ring here keeps ink from getting between this nib assembly and the section, which then could leak out and get on your fingers. So I've darkened the room a little bit, and we'll bring in our LED light of truth. I always think it's interesting to play different light on resins like this that really show you kind of the depth, the little bit of glitter, which I think is really nice. You got the little insert, which Nahvalur is famous for. Just a nice, plainly designed clip. As we talked about, the resin is translucent, so it lets a little bit of light through. Again, another little look at that resin. And as we talked about, the light also can let you see where the piston is. The cap is all the way down, so the piston is all the way up, which is what you would have after you filled it. If you wanted to fill it, you would turn the piston knob, and that would bring the piston down. And as you see, it stops there right above the ink window. And you would dip the nib in to ink, so the ink is partially up the section. Then while that nib is in ink, you would turn the cap at the end of the barrel and draw that piston up, pulling up ink, filling that chamber. So I don't think the Voyage Hawaii has a perfect ink, but obviously new pen, new ink. Yes, the Robert Oster Empire State Pen Show ink. And it's a shake and shimmy ink. Central Park Twilight. And here's the ink. And I would say that it's really perfectly named. And you do see some of that green glitter. Interesting green glitter in a nice dark blue ink. Looks like it could have some shading properties to it. But really, what matters is how it looks when it comes out of the nib. So I did my usual nib flushing, ink the pen, did, my 3 fills. It writes great. It took just about 2 lines of writing to get that nib to be perfect. There's a little bit more feedback, but maybe there was some coating on the end of the nib or whatever, but the paper was able to put it into good working order. And I like the way the pen feels. I like the way the nib feels. And the Robert Oster ink is pretty wet. For a fine nib, it's very wet. And I think that really brings out the color and the nuances of this ink. I don't know whether we'll get to catch any of the glitter. You know, it's always a challenge, but it's there. So we've come near the conclusion of this video review. I hope you enjoyed it. And watch my video on the Empire State Pen Show. I'll put a link in the description if you haven't found it or seen it already. So at a pen show, it's very difficult to walk around and not be enticed with all the incredible pens that are there for you to look at, to handle, to feel. But sometimes a pen just calls out to you, and this pen called out to me. And Nahvalur was one of the sponsors, or the sponsor of the Empire Pen Show, and they said there was over 600 attendees on Saturday, and I think that's excellent. All the people I talked to felt that it was a good show, and that's great. I mean, it was a good positive atmosphere. It just was fun. And I have a lot of stuff that will remind me of the show, and this pen is one of them. So with that, we've reached the conclusion. I hoped this video found everyone safe, healthy, and happy. Enjoying your pens, be they old, be they new, be they rediscovered. There's lots of ways to explore your pens and enjoy them. Thank you all for watching. We've come to the conclusion and the end. And we will say bye.